What's going on, family? I'm Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. Going to continue to examine the weight divisions. Now, right now, we're looking at the light heavyweight. And I showed you some images of light heavyweight champions throughout the last century. Well, let's look into the light heavyweight division and see when it began and how champions had captured the belts. Well, the light heavyweight class began in 1903. And it was fathered by Lou Houseman, who was a newspaper writer. He was a boxing promoter. He was also a manager for Jack Root, who was a middleweight. And Sam Langford was knocking on the door for all challengers. He wanted to fight for a title. So he challenged Joe Gans. He would defeat Joe Gans, but Joe Gans' title was not on the line because Sam Langford was overweight. So he was willing to move up to the middleweight, light heavyweight, or even heavyweight division at that time. He was 17 years old. So Jack Root found himself having a problem. Because as early as 1903, no one wanted to face Sam Langford. But Sam Langford would have amateur bouts in 1902. In fact, he would win the Boston Amateur Championship. So in 1903, his first year as a professional, he would fight the lightweight champion of the world, Joe Gans. And it was frightened a lot of contenders. So Lou Houseman thought of a scheme. Because the word on the street was Jack Root couldn't wait. He couldn't make the middleweight division anymore. So he wanted to create a weight division that was a gap between the middleweight and the heavyweight division. Because the next fighter that Jack Root would have had to fight would have been Jim Jeffries. So Lou Houseman did he decided to create a tournament. Sam Langford was not invited to that tournament. So what happened was Jack Root had to fight Charles Kid McCoy. And if he would beat Charles Kid McCoy, then he would become a portion of light heavyweight champion. Well, then you had George Gardner. He had to fight a young man who would try for the heavyweight championship belt. And his name was Marvin Hart. And if George Gardner would defeat Marvin Hart, then he would have half of the light heavyweight championship belt. And this would create two men standing, Jack Root and George Gardner. George Gardner would defeat Jack Root. George Gardner would then become the first light heavyweight champion who was unified of the world. Now at this time, the middleweight division weighed 158 pounds. And Jim Jeffries had weighed 216 pounds. So on April 22nd, 1903, Jack Root and Kid McCoy would meet in Detroit, Michigan. 10-round affair, with a new championship belt at stake. Jack Root would clearly outpoint Charles Kid McCoy. He was awarded the decision. July 4th, 1903, George Gardner would become the light heavyweight champion when he knocked out Jack Root. Stopped him in 12 rounds, Buffalo, New York. George Gardner was a devastating puncher. November 25th, 1903, Bob Fitzsimmons would succeed George Gardner as light heavyweight champion, winning a 20-round decision on points before San Francisco Club. December 20th, 1905, the title passed to Philadelphia Jack O'Brien. Jack O'Brien would knock out Bob Fitzsimmons. San Francisco, California, in 13 rounds. And Jack O'Brien, although recognized as a light heavyweight champion, went on fighting heavyweights without attempting to defend his title. So he would retire from the ring in 1912. 1911, he would lose in 6 rounds to Sam Langford. And he didn't like that loss. And he realized there was nowhere else to go. And he would retire. Now, May 28th, 1912, Jack Dillon, who was known as the Giant Slayer, or the Giant Killer, had claimed the light heavyweight championship belt. But like Philadelphia Jack O'Brien, devoted to most of his time in meeting genuine heavyweights. But on October 24th, 1916, Benny Levinsky scaled below 175 pounds. He defeated Jack Dillon in 12 rounds. He outpointed Jack Dillon in Boston, was recognized as the king of the light heavyweight division. October 12, 1920, Georges Carpentier of France knocked out Benny Levinsky in 4 rounds, Jersey City, New Jersey. Georges Carpentier was the light heavyweight champion of Europe, and by defeating Levinsky, he became world title holder in that particular class. January 13th, 1922, Gene Tunney, without point, battling Novinsky in 12 rounds. And he would take over the America's title. And he would lose that on points to Harry Greb. The old Madison Square Garden, May 23rd, 1922. He defeated him in 15 rounds. He would have Gene Tunney bloodied up. His eye was swollen, cut over his eye. He had a bloody nose. And he was breathing profusely. September 24th, 1922, battling Siki would knock out Georges Carpentier in Paris in 6 rounds, and he would win the World Light Heavyweight Championship crown. Battling Siki would become the first black light heavyweight champion in boxing history. February 23rd, 1923, Gene Tunney outpoints Harry Greb in 15 rounds in New York's Madison Square Garden. But he relinquished the claim to the light heavyweight championship belt, entering the heavyweight ranks. You see, he had his eye on the prize because Jack Dempsey didn't retire, but he took a hiatus with his title. So Gene Tunney saw fit to move in. March 17th, 1923, Mike McTgue had defeated Battling Siki on points in Dublin, Ireland. Mike McTgue was Irish, and this fight took place on St. Patrick's Day in Ireland. He would defeat him in 20 rounds, and he would become the light heavyweight champion of the world. May 30th, 1925, Paul Berlenbach would defeat Mike McTgue on points in New York. He would defeat him in 15 rounds, and he would become the new light heavyweight champion. Now, Paul Berlenbach was from Queens, New York. And he didn't have a very long career. He was at the right place at the right time. And before Battling Siki would fight Mike McTgue, Battling Siki was scheduled to face Kid Norfolk, William Ward. And he fought him once, and Kid Norfolk would defeat him. So Kid Norfolk was supposed to get a second opportunity for the title, but instead Mike McTgue would be given the opportunity. So Kid Norfolk would think that Mike McTgue would now give him an opportunity, and that did not happen. He would give Paul Berlenbach that opportunity. July 16th, 1926, Paul Berlenbach was defeated on points, 15 rounds, in Brooklyn, New York, by Jack Delaney. Jack Delaney was from Bridgeport, a small town in Connecticut. And Jack Delaney was a pretty good boxer during those years. But Delaney entered the heavyweight ranks in 1927, and the light heavyweight title was reclaimed by Mike McTgue. Not Kid Norfolk. No one else but Mike McTgue. October 7th, 1927, Tommy Loughran, who was known as the Philly Phantom, became the light heavyweight champion by outpointing Mike McTgue in 15 rounds in New York. And Loughran gave up the title in August 1929 to join the heavyweight ranks. A tournament to determine Loughran's successor was arranged. It was arranged by the New York State Athletic Commission. In the finals of the tournament, Jimmy Slattery would outpoint Lou Scalzo, Buffalo, New York. February 10th, 1930, in 15 rounds, he would become a light heavyweight champion. Jimmy Slattery was from a very small town. But he was the favorite to win. He was from Buffalo, New York. And I remember when Jimmy Slattery would have a war with Dave Shade out of California. Oh, what a fight that was. June 25th, 1930, Maxi Rosenbloom would clinch his claim to the light heavyweight championship division. He outpointed Jimmy Slattery in 15 rounds of Buffalo. And defeated him again in 15-round decision in Brooklyn, August 5th, 1931. The National Boxing Association ignored the New York Commission's choice. After the tournament in Chicago, he declared George Nichols as king of that grade, March 18, 1932. But on November 16, 1934, Bob Olin would become the light heavyweight champion when he outpointed Maxi Rosenbloom in 15 rounds in New York. October 31st, 1935, Bob Olin would lose his title to John Henry Lewis on 15 rounds. The fight took place in New York. John Henry Lewis would now become the second black light heavyweight champion and the first black American light heavyweight champion of the world. And that was an accomplishment all within itself. And we'll find out why in 1935, 1937, and 1938. John Henry Lewis will resign to enter the heavyweight class. And an elimination bout would now be established. Milo Bettina and Tiger Jack Fox were the survivors. They fought in New York's Madison Square Garden, February 3rd, 1939, and Fox was stopped at 9 rounds. Let's take it back for one moment. John Henry Lewis was scheduled to face Tiger Jack Fox, but he couldn't pass an eye examination test. And since he could not pass the eye examination test, the doctor would make a recommendation to the New York SAC and stated that I do not recommend that he fight. So John Henry Lewis was stripped because he didn't fight Tiger Jack Fox, but he couldn't fight Fox because he was not allowed to fight Fox because of his recommendation from the doctor. He didn't pass the eye examination test. So Tiger Jack Fox would not face John Henry Lewis. Tiger Jack Fox would face Milo Bettina. September 25th, 1939, Billy Conn would defeat Milo Bettina in 15 rounds in New York's Madison Square Garden, and he would win an international recognition as World Light Heavyweight Champion. But on June 1940, Billy Conn would resign, and he would move up to the light heavyweight division. He would move up from the light heavyweight division into the heavyweight division. Now, what was happening? Billy Conn was pressured to face Archie Moore. And he didn't want to fight Archie Moore. You see, Archie Moore was giving everybody hell. So he moved up to the heavyweight division. And he would join the Bum of the Month Club because he wanted to face Joe Louis for the heavyweight championship belt. January 13th, 1941, Anton Christophoridis had defeated Milo Bettina, Cleveland, Ohio, the NBA elimination tournament for the NBA crown. May 22nd, 1941, Gus Lesnevich defeated Anton Christophoridis, Madison Square Garden, 15 rounds. He would decide United States supremacy. On August 26, 1941, Gus Lesnevich defeated Tammy Mariello, and what a fight that was. New York's Madison Square Garden, 15 rounds. And Mariello, being the leading challenger following a knockout of Jimmy Webb of New York. It was very impressive, but unfortunately, But Tommy Mariello, he did not get an opportunity. Gus Lesnevich did. British and European boxers were inactive due to the European War. They viewed supremacy of the American light heavyweight titles. So Gus Lesnevich was given the opportunity. He became Conn's successor. He successfully defeated and defended his title against Freddie Mills, 1946, and Billy Fox, 1947. July 26, 1948, Freddie Mills defeated Gus Lesnevich in London, 15 rounds, and he would become the light heavyweight champion of the world. May 23, 1949, Joey Maxim would defeat Gus Lesnevich in 15 rounds in Cincinnati, Ohio, for the America's Light Heavyweight Championship belt, January 24, 1950. Joey Maxim had won the title by stopping champion Freddie Mills in 10 rounds in London, England. Now, there were some problems beginning to occur. Lloyd Marshall had defeated, in fact, he knocked out Freddie Mills. And he was never given an opportunity to join that tournament. And for that reason, he didn't get the shot at either Joey Maxim or Gus Lesnevich. Now, January 24th, 1950, Joey Maxim had won the title by stopping champion Freddie Mills. And December 17th, 1952, Archie Moore would finally get a shot at the title when he would defeat Joey Maxim. Joey Maxim had demanded $100,000, and Archie Moore would receive $800. And Jack Kearns was the manager of Joey Maxim. He was the manager of Mickey Walker. He was also the manager of Jack Dempsey. Well, then he became the manager of Archie Moore once Archie Moore signed that contract. So he would have Archie Moore face Joey Maxim 7 times. Over 15 rounds in St. Louis, Missouri, Archie Moore would become the light heavyweight champion of the world. On February 7th, 1961, after the NBA had lifted Moore's title, Harold Johnson knocked out Jesse Baldry in 9 rounds. And Moore was still recognized by the New York SAC. However, February 1962, New York withdrew its recognition of Archie Moore. And when Johnson beat Doug Jones in New York in 15 rounds in Philadelphia, on May 12, 1962, Johnson was now given international recognition as the light heavyweight champion of the world. June 1st, 1963, Woody Pastrana had won the title by outpointing Harold Johnson for 15 rounds in Las Vegas, Nevada. Now, going back to 1962, that was the year that Benny Kid Paret would die in a ring in facing Emil Griffith. And the state athletic commissions and referees were very sensitive at this time. So you couldn't do anything that would cause the referee to believe that you fouled the opponent or you punched after the bell or anything like that. So March 30th, 1965, Jose Torres would knock out Willie Pastrana, New York City, in the 9th round, and he would win the crown. Jose Torres would become the first Puerto Rican light heavyweight champion in boxing history. December 16th, 1966, Jose Torres and Dick Tiger of Nigeria would get it on. New York's Madison Square Garden. Louis for the light heavyweight championship title. Dick Tiger weighed 167 pounds, but he would defeat the 175-pound titleist Jose Torres in a unanimous 15-round decision. May 24th, 1968, Bob Foster of Washington, D.C. would win the title from Dick Tiger by a fourth-round knockout. My God, was that a knockout. Beautiful left hook that was. And Dick Tiger would defeat Joe Giardello for the middleweight championship belt. He would take on Gene Foreman. And he would also take on, but he would lose his welterweight championship belt to Emil Griffith. You know, Dick Tiger was some fighter. He was a fighter. And that's R.I.P. to him. He was something else. All credits are given to great fighters. But Dick Tiger was amazing. And Dick Tiger would face Emil Griffith for the middleweight division, not the welterweight. So I strike that. He had faced Emil Griffith for the middleweight championship belt. And he will lose his title to Emil Griffith. September 16th, 1974. Bob Foster had retired from the ring. He vacated the light heavyweight championship belt. Licked under the WBA and the WBC for their champions. And eventually these belts would get divided. The light heavyweight division has some history. It all began in 1903. Shout out to the light heavyweight division. Scrapbook Boxing, Museum of the Forgotten Fisticuffs series. All great fights and all great fighters will never be forgotten on my channel. Thanks for watching. Peace.